我在北京。
What is his name? That was easy. How about him? Okay, maybe still too easy, but now I got you. Who is this man? Wait, you've never heard of the Toad King, the amphibian who ruled over China for 13 years? Well, you're in for a ride today, baby. China has been in the news a lot lately, especially due to the ongoing tariff dispute with the US. But have you ever asked yourself, how much do you really know about this country and its leaders? A chaotic mess? Stern and serious politicians? China's current political landscape represents its desire to be taken seriously around the world. Look at their demeanor. They are boring. And so are most government officials. Except one.
That's right.
With his thick glasses, high-waisted pants, and utterly unfiltered personality,
Too simple, sometimes naive.
this former president of China broke the mold and became an unlikely internet sensation despite government censors trying to shut it down. Didn't expect that, huh? Meet Jiang Ze Min. There has never been another paramount leader since who has been as authentic and open to the world as him, even going face to face with foreign journalists and their tough questions.
I don't need translation. I know what you say.
This is the story of how the highest-ranking communist leader of an emerging superpower became the Toad King and won the hearts of millions online decades after leaving office. And how, despite everything, his legacy remains debated among historians to this very day. This is going to be a journey through fascinating Chinese history, so join me. The usual thing to do in China is to say, yes, he's a big shot today, but he started in very humble beginnings and he was nothing but a peasant. That was not the case with Jiang Ze Min. He was born in 1926 in Yangzhou, a historic city known for its gardens and canals. But his early life was hardly peaceful. He grew up during the Japanese occupation and Chinese Civil War. Turbulent times that shaped an entire generation to this very day. Without getting too deep into it, turn on the TV in China, 90% of all shows play in that era. And unlike many other revolutionary leaders, Jiang was an engineer by training. He was educated. You could almost call him an intellectual. Not a good thing to be in China at that time. He studied electrical machinery at Shanghai Jiaotong University and later trained at the ZIL in Moscow, some major Russian vehicle manufacturer. So while others were writing revolutionary communist theory, Jiang was learning how things worked, a practical mindset that would serve him well in the future. Add to that by the 1980s, Jiang had worked his way up to become the mayor of Shanghai, China's most cosmopolitan city and window to the world. But nothing in his life or career suggested that he was destined for the highest office. Quite the opposite. Just another communist apparatchik? Question mark.
No one knows how many people have died in the crackdown. We may never know.
It was noontime today in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace. It wasn't just a single tank he stopped. There were 18 tanks and armored carriers in this convoy.
1989, the Tiananmen Square protests. This event was much more than a couple of tanks on the road, but it's also way beyond the scope of this video. So when the dust settled, China's leadership was in crisis. A very important reformist general had been purged. That's how they did it. And China's then leader, Deng Xiaoping, you know, the guy who basically 180'd the entire country after Mao's decades-long reign and began the process of liberalization. In some ways, he's the architect of modern-day China. Anyways, he also greenlit the army to shoot at protesters. China claims 241 dead, the Red Cross estimates 2,600. This was a disaster of monumental proportion. Deng at this point needed someone new, someone reliable but not threatening to any faction within the party. Introducing Jiang Ze Min, the technocrat from Shanghai who had contained his local student protests without massive bloodshed. W's in the chat. Almost overnight, this relatively unknown regional nobody became the general secretary of the world's largest political party and the leader of 1/5 of humanity. But many saw him as a mere placeholder, a transitional figure who wouldn't last.
Big mistake.
Few could have predicted that this unlikely leader would not only survive politically, but go on to rule China during its most dramatic economic rise, or that many years later, he would become a meme. Little side note here, his rise and stay in China's political machinery is worthy of a video on its own, full of factions in the CCP strangling each other with brutal ruse and tricks, but that's too political and Game of Thronesy for me to explain. Moving on. When you think of China's political leaders, you probably imagine men in dark suits giving carefully rehearsed speeches. And for the most part, you'd be right. But then there's Jiang Ze Min. In 2000, during an official state visit to Israel, Jiang didn't just attend diplomatic meetings. That's boring. Who wants to do that? Road trip, road trip. He floated on his back in the Dead Sea, embracing his amphibious toad-like nature, beaming at the camera in his now iconic high-waisted swim trunks and oversized goggles. It was just Jiang being Jiang. In 1996, while meeting with the King of Spain, Jiang casually pulled out a comb and fixed his hair mid-reception. It is quite an unprecedented move for such an occasion and made it into the newspaper. Unlike all other Chinese leaders before or since, Jiang wasn't just fluent in English.
Are you not afraid that your son will be subjected to bourgeois liberalism?
I never afraid about this because my son is very good boy.
I'm convinced that if in that time I went to MIT, maybe I'm also doctorate degree.
What has China recently done concerning panda conservation?
I'm sorry, I'm electric power engineer.
He loved to show off his linguistic skills. He speaks Russian, Romanian, and several other languages as well. During meetings with foreign officials, he'd often break into their native language or even sing their songs. So how did this former president become an online sensation? It all started in 2014 when Chinese internet users noticed something peculiar. With his wide mouth, thick glasses, and somewhat rounded physique, some thought Jiang resembled a toad. What started as gentle mockery soon evolved into something unexpected. Affection. Online communities formed around sharing Jiang memes, quotes, and videos. They called themselves Hase, which means toad fans, and the phenomenon became known as Moha, meaning toad worship. What's remarkable is that this happened in China, where poking fun at political figures isn't exactly encouraged. It's not allowed. Yet the Jiang memes persisted, evolving from simple jokes to a complex subculture with its own language and rituals. As Chinese social media evolved, so did the toad worship. What began on forums spread on WeChat groups, Weibo hashtags, and even curated archives. Young Chinese netizens who were just children during Jiang's presidency came to know him not through history books, but through viral videos and memes. Toad fans created emoticons, remixes, and elaborate tributes. My favorite one is the claim that every meme you post is gonna prolong his life by another second. When Jiang turned 90 in 2016, Chinese social media erupted with birthday celebrations despite official attempts to limit the phenomenon. It is such an absurd case of people creating propaganda and a cult of personality on their own against the will of the state and without political messaging. It is bizarre. Terms like toad, elder, and even Jiang's name would periodically be blocked on Chinese search engines. But people always found creative workarounds and coded language to continue their toad worship. If there's one moment that defines his internet legacy, it's his response to a Hong Kong journalist in 2000. When reporter Sharon Chong asked whether Beijing had pre-selected Hong Kong's chief executive, a serious concern and fair question, Jiang didn't appreciate the implication and had a bit of a meltdown.
Too simple. Sometimes naive. 懂了没有？
那这样就行。
我今天是作为一个长者，你一定要非得要问我，你董先生支持不支持？我们不支持他，他现在是当特首，我们怎么能不支持特首？
但是如果说连任呢？
哎，连任要按照香港的法律啊，对不对？你们啊，不要喜欢弄个大新闻，说现在已经清定了，再把我批判一番。
但是呢，就是。
Naive.
In China's world of carefully scripted politics, maximum control, this unhinged moment was unprecedented and what's the opposite of like into the future, unfollowed. Which reminds me, subscribe for more China videos and epic gaming. His words have been remixed, memed, and quoted countless times online. In Chinese internet culture, calling someone too young, too simple, became a way to playfully dismiss someone without being too harsh. The phrase took on a life on its own, far beyond its original context. So why has Jiang's internet fame endured while other memes fade away? The answer is more complex than you think. First, there's the nostalgia factor. For many Chinese millennials, Jiang represents an era of rapid economic growth and relative openness. I say relative because yes, it remained a one-party state and he didn't turn China into a democracy, nor did he try. But when compared to his contemporaries, Jiang was the most open president to ever take office, in policy and attitude. He presided over China's entry into the World Trade Organization. He oversaw the return of Hong Kong that went over fairly smoothly. Smoother than Tiananmen Square, and a period of international engagement. He's a symbol of China's attitude towards the world at that time, an unstoppable train of optimism. Second, there's the contrast with more recent leadership styles. Compared to the meticulously choreographed public appearances of current leaders, Jiang's unscripted moments and visible personality feel refreshingly authentic. He could not be more different from what China's political elite has to offer today. And what I find much more interesting is that, in my humble opinion, and this is probably going to be the most political I'll ever get on this channel, most discussions around China on the internet in the West are utterly brain dead. On one hand, people are completely oblivious to the extent of China's influence, soft power, how it subverts freedoms domestically and abroad, and how frequently it threatens its neighbors. And on the other hand, people have a demented paranoia. There's no other way to put it. Is the CCP in the room with you right now? Say one positive thing about China. Chinese propaganda. I ate some really tasty noodles yesterday in Beijing. No. CCP spy confirmed. China breaks people's brains. China is not a free country. You cannot publicly criticize the leader or the party. They are very sensitive. You can't even compare the current president to a beloved cartoon character. To quote Hideo Kojima, they might be fragile. But yes, they're fragile. But this whole weird Jiang Ze Min toads phenomenon opened up a loophole through which Chinese netizens funneled, albeit in a playful way with memes, political expression. A way to discuss leadership styles and preferences without crossing red lines. If you find your president to be too antagonistic towards the world, you can simply share a meme of the Toad King dancing and singing with foreign leaders and proclaim how much you love and miss him. That is subtle, but it is critique. And finally, there's Jiang himself, a genuinely interesting character who played the Hawaiian guitar, quoted the Gettysburg Address from memory.
Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
Sang Elvis Presley songs and displayed a range of emotions never seen in Chinese politics.
主席女士，我还考虑到，今天这个场面，你可能也有所得。你们的国家里面有一些人要喊口号的，可能认为你做得好，是个勇士，但是你失去了一个中国的朋友。Madame the President, I'm sorry to say that. Merci beaucoup.
Despite his colorful personality, Jiang Ze Min led China during periods of significant controversy. When faced with challenging questions from foreign journalists, his responses often revealed both the happy-go-lucky goofball and the pragmatic politician. In 2000, Jiang sat down with veteran CBS journalist Mike Wallace for a rare extended interview with Western media. This conversation is the longest and most candid exchange between a Chinese politician and an American reporter ever. Jiang faced tough questions about the Beijing crackdown and the Falun Gong spiritual movement.
You haven't answered the question, Mr. President. Did a part of Jiang Ze Min admire his courage?
你要我说这句话
I know what you are driving at, but what I want to emphasize is that we fully respect every citizen's right to freely express his wishes and desires. But I do not favor any flagrant opposition to government actions during an emergency. The tank stopped and did not run the young man down.
And even got called a dictator right in his face.
A dictator, an authoritarian.
No, but I very frank speaking, I don't agree with your point. I'm dictator.
Compare that to this clip of Xi Jinping when asked a question he doesn't like.
After Mr. Obama answered his part, Xi removed his headset to signal he was moving on. Mr. Obama smiled and shrugged.
While his positions mostly adhered to the party line, he was always willing to engage rather than retreat behind scripted responses.
You were a student protester in Shanghai.
In Shanghai, that's right.
We want freedom. We want democracy. That was you.
That's right.
That's what those people in Tiananmen Square were saying. We want freedom. We want democracy.
Whether you see him as a serious statesman, an autocrat, an internet meme, or somewhere in between, Jiang Zemin's unlikely second life as a pop culture icon reminds us that even in the most controlled environments, authenticity has a way of breaking through and appealing to people. And in the end, perhaps that's the lesson of the Toad King. Be yourself. Okay, anyways, that's about it. See ya. If you enjoy these videos that give you insights into Chinese pop culture, check out the one I made on Jackie Chan and how he cursed every brand he ever worked with. It's a good one.